Tonight, Impeccable sources have shared with us puzzling details of the Ruaraka Land saga, pointing to where taxpayers were taken advantage of in this row over school land. Now, it all started back in 1981 when Afrison, a company associated with businessman Francis Mboro, purchased land from a company known as Joreth Limited, whose initial acreage was 168 acres. Afrison purchased 96 acres from the company that was owned by the late Arthur Magogo, the late Jenga Karume, and A. Peter Kenyatta. Now, this 96-acre portion was just one of four, as indicated here. As a result of a case in court by Mboro seeking compensation, the land was subdivided into two portions, as seen here, and we'll come back to that later. Now, for 2 years, the company took loans and mortgages on this property, but then decided in 1983 to subdivide the land. And this is where things get interesting, so please stay with me. Tonight, we have documents that show a puzzling trail of movement from private to public land with some gaps in the timeline. In 1983, an application was made by the two companies owning the land, that's Afrison Export Imports Limited and Hewlands Limited, to subdivide the 96-acre piece of land. They wanted it subdivided into 4 pieces. On the 27th of November of that same year, the then Commissioner of Lands approved the subdivision subject to some conditions. Conditions number 9 and 10 are the ones most relevant to this case. Condition number 9 was that they surrender some parcel of land for roads to the City Council, City Commission, as it was known then, at no cost. Condition number 10, was that they should surrender another portion of land for a primary school, a secondary school, a shopping center, a social center, and a special purpose center to the City Commission, again at no cost. Now, let's go to the 4th of July 1984, where Drive-In Estate Development, a company associated with Mr. Mboro, confirmed the surrender of the then said parcels of land in fulfillment of conditions 9 and 10, and then went on to make payment of 21,500 Kenya shillings for the subdivision process to the Ministry of Lands. There was then a process that should have followed this payment, and that is that of the owners of the land doing a survey of the land, providing a deed plan and the map. They should have attached instruments of surrender, which should have then been approved and registered and finally submitted to the Ministry of Lands. This entire process I've just explained would then have been recorded in the mother title, and the original 96-acre title for the land would then have been closed. 4 new title deeds for each piece of the new subdivided pieces of land. Now, it's not clear if this process was followed to completion, and that is where the confusion begins. Let me take you to the 12th of July, 1984. Assuming the process I have just outlined was completed, the Ministry of Lands issued a letter of reservation to the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology for Ruaraka Secondary School. The letter was signed by the director at that time. Now, 2 weeks later, on the 27th of July 1984, the town clerk of Nairobi also claimed interest in the same piece of land, asking the Commissioner of Lands to allocate the very same land for development of a primary school. According to the documents in our possession, things went quiet for 15 years. Then, in June 1999, the Commissioner of Lands issued a letter of allotment to the Ministry of Education. Okay, now 3 months later, we're talking about the 13th of September 1999. After this, Ruaraka High School responded to the Commissioner of Lands with an acceptance of the allotment. They even made the necessary payments for the land. Interestingly, on this very day, Drive-In Estate Development resurfaces, seeking to be allocated the very same piece of land they are supposed to have surrendered back in 1984 for the same use. Their letter was not stamped as received by the ministry. 1 day later, Ruaraka High School receives an official receipt for the money they paid and are declared by the Ministry of Lands to be the owners. Now we know that the court case of 2012 has since decided that the land was owned by Mboro and he has since been compensated. But the gaps highlighted in the transactions surrounding this 96-acre piece of land are quite puzzling and raise some important questions. Will the puzzling trail between 1983 and 1999 count in the investigations currently being conducted both by the EACC and the DPP? Well, that's one of the big questions around the Ruaraka land puzzle.